Hooray.
Go ahead.
Welcome, Daniel, to the part two of day number 3. We're talking about building the temple. So that was the
Ooh,
course today for discussing the different levels of integration, right? And depending on what it is you've got cooking in your traditions that you're creating for yourself and those around you, there are things that you should consider. Level 0 stuff is you're just cursory information. You're not actually engaging in anything. Level 1, you've identified a practice that you want to partake in, opening the gates, working with the magic, working with these things in a kind of hands-on kind of way. Level 2, you are doing something that is going to change your life forever and entrain you to working with the gods, in this case, the rite of transformation. Level 3 is you're working with a very specific deity. You're working with a very specific thing in order to become an embodiment of that force, so much so that that is your primary modus of operandi. So that way, everything else you do follows into that. And so that way, as you go through and you build your community out, as it relates to your practice, as it relates to those people that you're working with, because they're not going to go into the stuff as deeply as you are, assuming you go as deeply into it as, you possibly can, right? And so by doing that, by achieving that different levels of understanding, where are you at, would you identify, and where do you want to get to when it comes to developing your own traditions?
personally, I'm at, I would say level 2, I guess. I've worked with specific things, but I'm waiting because I want to hit the rite of transformation. I'm very, very interested in that. Um, but I'm, of course, waiting to do it correctly so to speak. So I plan on waiting until the next equinox, which is on March 20th or 22nd. I forget. I believe it's the 20th. So in the Grimoire of Arts, it mentions waiting until, if I recall very roughly, equinoxes or other days of power like that. It mentioned one in October, but I'm gonna do it. I'm very excited to want to hit it as soon as possible within
Sooner
reason.
rather than later. How
Oh
fantastic.
yeah.
So you know that you're going to be dedicating yourself to basically the essences of the energies of the planets that move through the heavens as well as they move through you. So this will be a dedicating your life to the service of the gods, the spirits, the other world, in whatever adventure it might lead you down. So you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of interesting shit, which I
Oh yeah.
congratulate you for. I
I'm
absolutely do.
already I'm already working with this stuff. I'm always thinking about it in almost every waking moment, because there is just a world of infinite possibility.
It very much so is. It very much
Now,
so is.
when it comes to like the level 3 thing, with a very specific thing, I am, I'm fairly new. It's been a couple years. I haven't exactly picked out and if I do, I'm gonna wait. It's a eternal decision, is it not?
Depends on what you work for.
Fair. I mean, is it a contract basis? 1 or 2 lifetimes?
One or two lifetimes. All eternity. No. So there's different ways to approach it. Like a buddy of mine, the guy with the Greek temple, right? He spent his entire life or the 10 or 12 years that he was worshiping Aphrodite as just a devotee. He never took the orders of the priesthood because the orders of that priesthood, castration. He had, snip, snip.
Oh,
Like, yeah, that's what the ancients did. And that's what the men, especially that worshipped Aphrodite, had to undergo. They had to become as the feminine, right? Working with Osiris, that's what happens. Osiris becomes Horus. It's part of it. So you've got that, or you've got the transubstantiation rites, like with what Irad did, who was the son of Cain, who then became Enosh, the high priest, who then became Metatron, the right hand of God. Same guy, same entity, 3 different states of his life. And so you've got that different progression that, as you go through life, as you go through, you've got time yet. You're only 17. Like, I didn't meet the
right.
first entities until I was just shy of 19. And then I didn't get to the full immersion of you belong to me, like Themis, until I was 26.
Yeah, because especially at the age that I'm at, I don't want to dedicate myself, to anything because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. The rite of transformation sounds pretty sick because I already work with those energies. I already do those things, and I see no reason not to, you know.
Exactly.
It's committing to daily routine, you know.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like when you start dealing with the daily of magic, like the energy flow, the conversations of it, the study of it, the application of it, the depth of what you get to do with this kind of thing, especially now that you're in the pre-stages of doing it. Like we have time before you go through it to make sure that you're caught up to speed, that you understand these are behaviors. There is an energy flow that you've already experienced that is deeply different than just creating a spell and going for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like once you drink the drink and conjure the thing, balancing the body's energies as a result of that is that relationship between you and those forces in such a way that it's going to alter how you feel about different things. And so that's why I like it so much as one of the initiatory paths that I work students through, is because it does give you a very tangible application of this stuff, right? It does very squarely put you into that level 2 situation where you're going to do magic. You just want to have all the tricks of your trade available to you immediately, right? And that's the thing about like working with books like the Necronomicon and that kind of 9-month level of path working, because it's the descent into the underworld that book particularly describes, where you go through and you make the crown, you make the dagger, you make the jewelry, etc., for representing Persephone's path into Hades, into the other world. And so it's the relinquishing of those things. You take off the crown when you do the rite of Ishtar, or Inanna, and you relinquish aspects of power from the earthly world, and you assume otherworldly power. Well, it doesn't require that of you. It doesn't relinquish the power that you have in your body, because you're channeling the stuff of both worlds through your body, because all worlds flow through your body. It's the unification of the thaumaturgic principle of the Baphomet with theurgy, right? It takes out it's acting with the will of God in unity, but it isn't a specific God, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Which I like, open-ended, which is nice, because especially because I'm not ready to dedicate myself to one special thing for all of eternity, because there's so many fish in the sea, right?
Exactly. There's an infinite number of stars in the heavens, and this is where it's fun, is because then you can do other things like doing the star stepping becomes a lot easier. So like when you walk the path of the Big Dipper, or when you make your prayer, you take your step, you make your prayer, you take your step, when you're doing these literal walking rituals to open up different energy sources of power. And that's what's really great about Taoist magic and the blending of this kind of energy. So once you get that internal current flowing, right, then you'll be able to have this inner yoga, essentially the interaction of being able to apply the energy techniques into form. And mantras are the form that energy takes. And so you've got the energy between yoga, which is the action, mantra, which is the form. You get yantra, which is the creation.
Mm.
And so, it's a Hindu concept, but still very tangible. And, reading through books like the Great Book of Magical Art, Hindu Magic and Indian Occultism, it goes through the different breaths of every astrological force, every element, and things like that. And even in that book, because the gentleman that wrote it interviewed some yogis when he was over in India in the early 1900s, it is very specific to making sure that when you are doing these kinds of things, you're doing so in a safe capacity. So that way you're not damaging your body, you're not damaging your psyche. You're giving yourself time to heal after each of these processes. And that's why it's the period of integration is so important when it comes to dealing with creating that secondary tier of you're now stepping out of what everybody else is doing. And now you're stepping into your own world of power, right? And that's exactly what building a level 2 conversation is like, it's that, all right, you're now going to become a priest of power. You've got that oomph behind you. And there's no separation between you, God, the universe, etc. There is no intermediary force that you need to worship. It's just when you do bond, if you do ever find yourself in a position of working with a patron or working with one of the traditions, and you become attached to those, then that changes the rules. That gives you the ability to work like them, but it doesn't give you the ability to work with them, if that makes sense.
I see. And
yeah, the priests have a different rule set than lay people do. You know, it's like they have very specific taboos. They have very specific, like, there was this one lady who couldn't go outside at noon without her head covered. She wasn't allowed to eat pumpkin anymore because it was the spirit's taboo food.
Pretty neat. I like that. It's funny because I
pumpkin
think
spice.
that yeah, you know, what am I gonna do on Thanksgiving? I think that's pretty funny too, because that book that you mentioned, the of the, you know, Hindu occultism or Middle Eastern, I'm pretty sure that that's in the library that I sent you.
Nice.
I don't sure. I have one. I have a couple, several Eastern occultist books, but I remember one of them. I just the word, I don't know. It's a beige tan cover. I don't really remember.
Yeah, it's
But
beige and tan, and it's got a gold like writing on the cover of it. It's very 1920s. I mean, it was written in
yeah,
1920, so
pretty sure I have it. I'm like 83% sure I have that. That's pretty funny.
yeah. I found that book originally in an antique store, and that was one of the first real books that I got that was outside of the Llewellyn publications and such. Because I was very much a child of like the Walden books, the Barnes and Noble, because in where I grew up, we only had the Walden books and we had 2 used bookstores. And they all sold similar things except for the used bookstore. That was in Northern California, and they had tons of magic books, tons.
I'm from Northern California. My mother used to take me to Barnes and Noble and Half Price Books and
oh, nice.
couple other places. I don't really remember. I was too young. But yeah. And how old are you, Brian?
38 or 38 in a couple months.
Figured you were in your like mid late 30s. You have a lot of experience, and the stories that you tell, I find them very, very interesting. That's why in the last one, I was very curious in yours and Alex's stories.
I spent more time in San Francisco my senior year than I did in my high school and senior year. Interesting city. There is a place that used to exist. It's now only online. It's called Field's Bookstore. That is a resource that you need to like hit the fuck up. Like, that place is awesome. Expensive books, but they deal in the rare stuff. Like, that's where I got my first copy of the Viridarium Umbris. It was $160. Now it's worth over $1,000 if you can find a copy of it. If one of my friends in Napa still has it, so I have to get up there to go get it back from him. I have to track him down. But the thing is with the rare information is not always accurate. Like working with books like The Queen of Hell, The Red King, or The Scorpion God by Mark Allen Smith, it postulates that Lucifer, Belial, and Hecate are Atlantean gods that are the only holdovers from a fold-in time. And so despite the fact that they have separate origin points, his book sets that they're all the same thing. It's channeling Atlantean gates of power, Atlantean magic, right? And I can't verify this one way or another. Like
Hmm.
some of the stuff that I've seen in the astral plane, like when it comes to like dealing with the Temple of Night, like that's a temple where if you project into it, the people that I've talked to that have also say the same thing. It's got pillars that are made out of what looks like black obsidian with streaks of gold veins running through them in different sets, in different spaces between. There is an altar set up with different tools on each altar in each of the 8 directions. And there's a giant thing that's like a giant marble slab with a fire in the center of it. It's insane. And, you know, to hear stories of that, it's like, well, I've never seen a picture of it except for as a reference in Mark Allen Smith's book. Like that's the only book I've ever seen a picture of it.
That just gave me a big flashback to, God, it was like a year ago. There's this book I read a lot of. It talked about something very similar to that, you know, the temples of elements. And I remember talked in big detail about pillars, and one of them, I believe was the earth one, had a giant marble slab as an altar. When a
Sounds
hard
about
time.
right.
Damn. What was it you said?
Oh, that book?
Or yeah, just in
That book
reference to that.
that book was The Red King by Mark Allen Smith. It's
Red
part
King.
2
Thank you.
of Hecate and Belial's books.
I need to, God, you just awoke a really deep memory. And you know that I've never even heard of Atlantean, you know, occultism or magic before.
Right. And
That's
that's why it's weird as shit, because this is where UPG becomes bizarre because he wrote it down. He created rituals that other people can practice to test his method.
Hmm.
Right. And so this is where we go back to the conversations the other day about verification is if you can give verification of your stuff, how do you do it? You write it down, you create rituals that other people can practice, words that other people can say and intone and pronounce and things like that, you know, and you use the mythos structure that's accurate. Like with we were going through it last night with Alexander's notebooks, which he stole from Gardner and published as his Alexandrian Wicca.
Mm.
You know, I've got those and, you know, the keys of power and the different things that it talks about in those books, right? With all the different scriptures and inscriptions and stuff on that, on like the key of perfect love, the key of perfect trust, like you pass into perfection. And, you know, it deals with a lot of Egyptian concepts. It deals with a lot of mythos reconstruction that you don't find in modern Wicca because they never took the time to go back and get really into depth with it. They're just like, oh, we're just going to worship a god and goddess and that's going to be that, right? Like
We're gonna light a single candle, maybe incorporate a herb.
right,
The deepest we'll go is maybe the color of the candle, and
right.
then we'll say a couple generic words.
And this, it gives the Egyptian conjurations with the English conjurations. This assumes the rights of naming, the similar to the things that I've talked about before, where they're assuming the role of God in some of the ritual evocations. There is the separation between the rights of being able to understand the levels of invocation. And so this is one of those things where when you're doing invocations and in both the Necronomicon and the PGM, as well as in, oh fuck, what is it? It's the Sumerian or the Babylonian Magic by Leonard King. That one. It gives the evocations that they used back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Necronomicon, not so much, because that actually, a lot of the invocations in that come out of Coptic Book of Power. Oh God, Francis Lenormant in the 1800s. That book, which gets weird, not really the best translations, kind of gets frowned on in the liturgical cycles. They're like, oh, it's been debunked and all this stuff. And the idea is that there's different levels of prayer. There's the beseeching of the God is, I beseech thee, you who did this with this purpose for this purpose, you who are the lover of this, son of this, child of this, for the purpose of this, I bring you into my work. Right.
Right.
And then there is, I am not myself. I am Marduk, master of magicians. It is by my will that I call forth this power, right? And so it assumes the role of deity. And assuming the role of deity is the proper application of invocation, right? When you invoke a deity, when you are done with the invocation, for the period of the energy that flows through you, you are supposed to be the embodiment of that God force, that energy, that entity, that divine force of, this is the action that you have. And that is the stuff that's inside of Sanders's notebooks, which is legit. Absolutely. And that's why it's really cool, because it was written by, Gardner, who was a high priest, who made Alexander's up a high priest and things like that. And they become the literal embodiments of the gods that they're supposed to work with. That's what the initiation rites are for, right? It's like becoming the Pope of your traditions. And
Right.
in the same kind of way, it's like there's one high priest for a region, right? Like if you've got a bunch of covens of witches doing a bunch of different things, and there's one guy and one girl who are, or one woman who is an elder and is the matron of the covens, and then there's one guy who's the father of the covens. Like it's those two who are when everybody gets together, right? But covens can also just be made out of regular priests and regular initiates. Like you don't need the high priest to do everything. You need the priest to be able to do everything, right? And so when it comes time for the big ceremonies, then you get the high priest involved, then you get, and then they're bringing down the god because they're the embodiment of it. And then you've got the priest who's serving that as a secondary station to be able to do things like the elemental quarters, like the directional gates and things like that, so that the people that are specifically focusing on bringing down the gods, all they have to do is focus on bringing down the gods, when everybody else is supplement to that energy to create an entire environment and ecosystem that establishes a temple.
Wow.
So everybody has a separate role. And
Right.
a lot of times in modern Wicca, it's just used as an initiatory practice. It's just used as well, I'm going to do my year and a day, and then I'm going to do my first degree, and then I'm going to do my second degree, and then my third degree, and then there's no actual power behind it.
I like that. All of the roles of assistants, it contributes to a greater work.
Exactly. And that's where stuff like Freemasonry, like rituals of the Golden Dawn, everything has a station. There's an officer of the quarter of the North. There's an officer of the quarter of the East. There's an officer of the quarter of the West and South. And everybody has a different role, so that when the magic is supposed to flow and they're doing unison work to bring in a god, to do to do a wedding ceremony, to do a funeral ceremony, to do whatever sex magic ritual that they're doing in order to engender new life, using the gods as an intermediary, like they're having sex on the altar. One's a god, one's a goddess. The baby that gets born is a child of both, right? That actually happens. It's called the Great Rite, and doing stuff like that, it's big magic. And yes, it does mean a lot, but modern day magicians tend to forget about that. They tend to forget that there is an entire structure of life that goes into this, that it's just beyond the books, and it's beyond one or two cursory studies or classes on this shit. Like this is a lifetime vocation that you're talking about. And so if you're going to dedicate yourself a year and a day to a particular coven or an idea, right, you're doing it to connect to the god that is the overseer of that coven, in the same way that you've got a priest who's not a bishop, and a bishop is higher than a priest. And then you've got the archbishop who's over the priests and over the bishops and all of the diocese and all the people inside of it. It's like there's roles, right? And you've got the candle bearer, you've got the incense bearer, you've got the, all of the different like bearers of the tools, right? And everybody has a specific role to play. And building out a temple, building out a tradition, especially if you have the means to do so, it's like for Alex, his designs are on creating a family tradition. So having this conversation with him, like, what's your first level stuff? What's your second level stuff? What's your third level stuff, right? He's only in the first level. He's trying to do the second level, but he doesn't know what it is going to be yet. Right.
Right.
Because, and he's working with his girlfriend or his wife, I believe it's his wife, who is his second, who is going to be the high priestess, whereas he's the priest, right? Like he's got children with this woman. So it's the implementation of this stuff, which comes to be the harder part, because then you've got daily life of trying to run your business, run your job, working for somebody else, learning this stuff, spending your extra free time learning with these people, living with these people in some cases, in order to be able to assume the roles that are necessary, right? But then people get bullshit mixed into it. Like they start screwing around on each other. They start screwing each other, and it's like, no, this is a religious order. It's like, it's not about the sex. It's about the power and the energy that you bring into it as you work your way through these different stations. Like if you are an air person, right? Or if you're a fire person, or if you're a water person, or if you're an earth person, you should focus on specifically working with that energy first, because it all causes specific changes, right? And so it's like, getting into those changes is what a lot of folks don't consider. It's like, staff down.
Yeah.
Staff. You stay over there. All right. So like, here's an example, right? You've got Earth, right? Earth's principles of magic establishes a need to produce something, give sensations, it puts spirit into matter, right? In its yang form of it, the masculine and the active aspect, it's organized ambition, systematic, steady, enduring, methodical, thorough, and practical. In its yin state, it's unimaginative, negative, unyielding, dull, sluggish, compulsive, anxious, formal, and greedy. Air, it has a need for social and intellectual changes, thinking and objective, right? Yang is intellectual, mental, rational, detached, logical, conceptual, engaging knowledge. Yin of that is overtly intellectual, cut off from feelings, ungrounded, distant, and insensitive, right? And so if you've got somebody who is an air person or an earth person in your coven or in your temple or in your group or whatever, they should be doing things of social media. Whereas the earth person should be doing things for cultivating the land, cultivating those kinds of attributes, so that there isn't a flow through from that elemental principle into the tangible aspect of, okay, well, how do you make these concepts something that your group can work with? Right. Especially if you start incorporating your friends, your girlfriend, you start working with other mystical orders and things like that, as you start bringing these as a through line, and shit. Ideally, you'll be embodying these things so totally after the rite of transformation that once you start doing things like working with the seals of power for each of the elements, like drawing out the symbols that represent the gateway, the locks of the door, right? So if you use the conjurations and you set up what your aspect is to the gates of fire, the gates of earth, or the gates of air, etc., like the same way with the celestial ones, those are behaviors. You write your own gate conjurations based on the experiences that you have with those energies as they align to these basic principles, right? And so a seal is the physical intermediary between you and that energy, where you get that link and that loop through. So you have a place where that energy coalesces, so that from that gateway out the things come.
I like the level of dedication, as a concept to these things, like the order, the temple, everything. And what's shitty about most modern practices of, let's say, Wicca, for example, is that it's not as dedicated to result. It's more garnish than meat, and that leads to failure of things, like some person buys a book at let's say a Barnes and Noble, tries to do something for wealth, it doesn't yield any fruits because they put little to no effort into it, and then they think that it is a wad of nothing,
Right.
They there's no structure to it. It's a bunch of nothing, and that leads to uh, failure. And you know, it's shitty to see. It's
It really
annoying to
is.
see.
It
You
really
know,
is. And
because
that sort of thing breaks my heart, is because I don't believe that the people that are coming into magic are bad. I don't believe, I feel that the children that are over on TikTok, and I'm calling them children because they behave like it. I don't
mm,
care if you're in your 30s, but if you're just, shiny candles and plastic parts and putting stones into your candles and stuff that
right,
are going to explode, then it's not good. Like, it's really not good.
right. It's like I said, all garnish, no meat. You know,
Yeah,
it's a load of nothing. It's empty words and energy and emotion,
right.
and that
And
leads
that's
to equally empty results.
right. And that's the thing, is getting people functional with this stuff, getting yourself functional with this stuff takes fucking work, man. It's like, that's
Right.
why root workers call it working.
Mm.
It's
I'm
it's so
cold.
much deeper than just the associations of the elements. There's the entire body mechanic that flows through with it.
Right. And one, like, for example, I see workings of wealth, and I think in another person's perspective, they might be, well, why aren't you rich yet? You know what I mean? Which I find funny because I haven't been asked that, but I am a very neutral person. I am always content with everything I have. The only time I ever wanted wealth was I was 15 and wanted a stable income, and I got a job that I have still stuck with until now. It pays me pretty well. I love who I work with. It's pretty amazing.
And see, that is under the right conditions, that is the exact example of what wealth is. You're happy with the conditions that you have, you're pleased with everything that's around you, and you have ample means to take care of yourself.
I wanted to be content with what I was putting into, and I have been made whole by it. Therefore, the work has been done. If I wanted more, if I reached out for more, I feel I would have gotten more. But I just wanted to not have $200 to my name and that be the most money I have, like, ever. Like, but it's 200 bucks for a 15-year-old. It's pretty good, especially California standards.
Right? Shit.
Yeah.
Fucking
uh,
California. Oh, California. Oh man. As soon as I get the opportunity, I'm going somewhere else, because somewhere else I'll be able to buy land, buy property, buy a house, buy a bread and breakfast, build out
Idaho. Wow.
the infrastructure that I'm looking for all of this stuff, so that there's a physical location where people can come to and study, at least for a weekend, and do a workshop. It's like, you want to do a ritual, let's set it up. We
Go
can
to the
facilitate.
Midwest. Go to the middle of, like, I don't know, Kentucky or something, Oklahoma, Utah. There ain't shit out there. Have a little weekend resort thing, get a have people get a flight out there,
I
work
have
their thing.
2 5-acre plots out in Colorado.
Really?
Yeah, so there is the possibility for doing work out in the middle of nowhere, but also having a building in a city that's known for its haunted locations or its
Hmm.
magical practices. So that way there is an inner city resource or an in-city resource. And so expanding it out that way. But, eventually, unfortunately, if New Orleans wasn't such the murder capital that it is, I'd go back down there, if it wasn't so corrupt, so corrupt. Like, that
Yeah.
is a beautiful area.
So
Like, I loved living down there.
I I wondered because I'm big on traveling. I've been on many flights, from mostly to Arizona, but then to Missouri, to from Idaho and California, back and back and back. Um, yeah, I've been a lot to Nevada, and especially for my age, that was pretty good. I let's see, what are your thoughts on the travel stuff, because it's plastered in many, I guess, more ancient grimoires and whatnot, uh, deities and intelligences of travel transport you from one place to another, whatever. But I've never spoken with anyone on experience, and you have a lot of experience
Okay,
with things.
so that generally deals, as far as I've been able to find in plane traveling.
That makes a lot more sense because I've seen that, but with no annotation
Right.
describing it.
There are historical instances of bilocation, such as Padre Pio, who was one of the first people with stigmata, who's
It was talked about in the Taoist book too.
yeah. He's an interesting cat. There's also another guy who was in Mexico City and woke up in Spain. So I don't think it was the same cat. I think it was another fella, but it was along the same lines of being able to project yourself with your mind and then pull your physical body to your mind where it's located, and you bring your body to you. That's the concept.
That's how it was described in the Taoist book, for example. I read through that like a motherfucker.
Yeah, like that's one of those where it's like, I've never successfully gotten that to work. And things like Richard Kuykefer's 15th century of the Munich Handbook of Necromancy, his translations of it, which I believe you have a copy of, it describes using something like a deer bone or a deer jaw or some such like that, carving the symbols into it, standing upon the magic circle that looks like an arc or a boat that's pictured in the back, and you're supposed to fast for 30 days. So it's going to put you into a state of mild hallucination. And when you're out in the woods, it's supposed to conjure up the spirits of a boat and take you where you need to go or where you want to go, while so long as you're holding this thing. And I can't say for one thing or another that sort of shit actually works. And it doesn't just result in something along the lines of the witch's sabbat, which is, you cover yourself in drugs and then you start projecting yourself into the other world.
It's quite a commitment to test that out too. Yeah, let me just fast for 30 days and then we'll see if it works. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Right. It's like, now here's a fun fact. You can do multiple shared perspective. You could do shared projections, right? So if you've got a coven that you're working with, if you've got groups of people that you're working with in magic and mass a lot, you learn how their energy works, and you can identify those energies within the collective sphere of creation. And so by doing that, you're able to link into their mind, and their mind links back into you, and you can form a network. So you can do thought projection into their head. They'll call you, they'll get a hold of you, whatever. Back in the day, you could use drugs to do this, and they would use drugs. So instead of having to go travel to some place that was across the state or a few hundred miles away, and you're older, you could use the meditations, you could use the herbs or whatever it is, and facilitate a consciousness leap out of your body to go meet this person in the other world, right? And if you both have this arrangement to use the same ingredients on the same date, then you could link your perspectives based on they're your friend. You can use your conjurations with the drugs that are resonating your body and your mind at the same rate. You two are resonating in the same location, mentally speaking, and then you can interact with each other in the astral plane, and you can share the same visions.
You've described that to me with your story of Jormungandr and the, I believe, giants or titans. I'm a little foggy right now.
Okay, though no, that is something separate. I'm talking about like sharing your psychic projection. So like there's this thing that you could do back in 2012, right after I released the Grimoire of Arts. I was also working with another group of folks. We called it the Society for Universal Studies. And it was, one of them was a healer, one of them was a psychic, and then one of them was me as the primary driving force for this collective. And we would do linked projections. So while in a trance talking to each other on the Facebook Messenger or in the pagan space, private messages and stuff, we would be able to link consciousness and basically see through each other's mind's eye. So the ideas that he had, I was able to describe in the chat. The ideas I had, he was able to describe in the chat. And then there were other people that wanted to, practice their astral projection or whatever it was. And so they invited us to go and project into their dreamscape. And the effect was the two of us meets the four of them in basically a battle royale dome in the astral plane. It was quite intense because the same experience that I had on my end when I just let loose was the same kind of thing that I saw him doing when he let loose. Like it was the two of us were there, the three of them were there, the space was created, and yeah, this whole thing went down between five guys, the two of us and those four, whatever it was. But it's at a certain point, it's like when you understand the astral body, when you understand the transformation magic that you can undergo, and when you understand that you can control absolutely everything about everything when it comes to what is on the psychic planes, the limitations of flesh become laughable. And so when people are new, they're very tethered to their physical form. They try to stay in human shape. You don't have to, not when you're in the astral plane. You can look like a fucking monster. You can look like the things into the planes which you're projecting in.
I've heard, I've read a lot about astral works like that. I've been meaning to, but I keep putting it off. I've meant to empower this multiple times using the lunar gate, but I just haven't gotten fucking around to doing it.
Yeah.
Probably do it tonight. Hold another little thingy. I'll refine this, but I want to.
Do you have any of the herbs of the moon?
I don't believe so. I don't have a lot of material possessions of.
Do you have jasmine? Do you have let's see, like you could raid your spice cabinet. Like the back, like let's see.
I can pull up a list of correspondences, or actually, you probably could with your wide variety of collection of books.
Yeah, so like the moons, do you have eucalyptus, lemon, jasmine, lettuce, myrrh?
Fine. Some fucking lettuce or jasmine, those are pretty common things. Lemon or jasmine, or yeah. Not jasmine, lemon or lettuce. God. Again,
lotus also. Depending on where you're at, you could get lotus tea, but you could make a simple condenser of lotus tea. Like I was able to buy it at the Buddhist monastery up in I think it's Pomona. I don't know. I forget where it's at, but it anyway. You make a tea, like you just boil like you would be brewing a tea, and if you've got regular ink that you drew the sigil in, get a paintbrush, dip the paintbrush in the tea, and draw over that image with that ingredient.
Yeah, infuse it.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. God, there's so many possibilities, so many ways to imbue these things. And that's what I love so much about it. There's so much. It's funny. I'm sitting at my girlfriend's plywood desk right now, and I just, out of context, want to show you this. I think this is so cool.
Oh shit!
I just love cool. This desk. Yeah,
and
she made it and everything.
Mushrooms.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's awesome. I think it's pretty cool. I was just looking at this while you were talking about the herbs, and I was like, wow, I want to some mushrooms and give me some fun projections.
You go to iamshaman.com.
Yeah.
You got to be 18. So wait till your birthday. They require a photo ID.
Counterfeit.
But when you turn 18, that's where you can get your ethnobotanicals.
Ooh.
So if you want to get your fly agaric, that's where you can source it from, and you can get really good grades at it.
It's funny because my birthday is funny. It's on the 31st of December, last day of the year. New
Oh
Year's Eve.
shit. Okay. So you got a year of like space between when you can play with these ingredients legally. So
Oh yeah. Well, one day, you know, hey, all but a blink of time in the eternity that I reside in.
amen to that. Absolutely, man.
Just,
Absolutely. So do you have questions? Like what what
uh,
what what questions do you have when it comes to like building out your practice space? Because you can use it in the astral space, you can use it in the physical space, you can use it as a gateway. So like after you do the rite of transformation, right, you've got the physical body taken care of. Then you have the level 3 stuff, which is the astral initiations. It's the stuff like I was talking about with the world snake. It's the stuff of meeting with Mimir and the interactions with the spirit gods in the planes where they reside, right?
mm,
You do the spell to enter the pathway to go to those places specifically. So you're not bringing them to Earth. You're not bringing them to some conjuring circle. You're taking yourself, your essence, that, and going there to meet them in their places and getting the
mhm.
initiations there. It's like a shamanic inversion. It's a shamanic path working.
Huh. You know, I'm interested. Yeah, I see with the physical setup that I have right now, I don't have a lot of room for a ability to do things. You know, I like to have a little chop shop routine. But this astral stuff, you know, the astral materia is like everything else, fucking infinite, which certainly fucking helps.
Right. And
I'm so interested in that, you know.
yeah, the best way to get to it is in the liminal spaces, 5 minutes before you sleep, maybe 10 minutes before you
Yeah,
sleep. You're laying down to bed,
that's
you're feeling kind of fuzzy. You want to be in that state of like you're almost asleep, but you're not, but you can control your mind and you project out. That's the best space to do it, because if you do it right, you could just be out for hours. When you come back into your body, it's like, it feels like you just ran a marathon or you get your ass
yeah,
kicked or what have you.
because that's when I do it. I've had to make multiple of these. The reason that I would only basically empower it with just meditation rather than invoking gates and stuff, celestial gates, which is what I like to do now because it's much more effective. Um, I would lose them. I would clutch them in my left hand as I start to drift off, and it would put my body to sleep and keep my mind awake. And the last one that I did with the lunar enhancement, it was able to fill up my body, like my astral form and everything. And I felt like I was swaying, you know, clockwise, but I
Yeah.
couldn't just get out. But I started doing a thing where, well, I did a thing where instead of falling asleep eventually while it's clutched in my hand and losing my consciousness, which would eventually I'd wake up and it'd be gone, I leave one or two socks on and I just slip it in my sock before I completely pass out. I'll wake up because I don't want to get out of bed, disturb my girlfriend, you know, whatever, go
Right.
put it back where it goes. Um, I should get a wristband or something, you know, just
Better yet. All right. So here's Chinese magic for you.
ooh.
Get you a set of watercolors.
Ooh, that is a good idea. Or I
Paint
could
it
use
on
inks
your
or
body.
I'll fucking ink it up right now.
Uh-huh.
Um, I can ink it up right now. So here's the thing. Does it matter? Because I haven't tested this myself. Let's say I have the thing. Is it because I've obviously empowered this with the lunar gate thing? Is it tied to the physical object itself, or is it tied to the symbol? You know, could I copy
It's
the symbol
tied to
down?
the symbol.
Great. What if, you know, just purely speaking in hypothetics, what if someone used is it just the symbol in my context, or is it the symbol in general? Because like what if someone had, you know, made up the same fucking symbol? Would that
Then
have
if they
any
completed the spell in the same way, the energy would work the same way. But the fact is,
okay.
you've got that symbol, you've conjured the gate with it, you've put the energy into that piece of paper, into that ink, into that design. Now, what you could do,
Mm,
if you were to do it, here's another way you could do it. You could do an ink transfer like they do for tattoos. You could soak it in tea of that particular lunar gate, and then you put it on your wrist or you put it on your body, and you do a rubbing and you transfer from that thing over to your skin
create a
via,
link, yeah.
and you get a
That
physical
is
link.
a that is a wonderful idea. You know, I thought about
something like that. But I figured it's tied to the symbol because that's what I have fixed it to.
It's
But then
tied to
again,
the everything that went into the making of the symbol. It's tied into the ink, it's tied
exactly.
into the paper, it's tied into all of that because you've already interjected the energy of the gate to it. You've filled it up with the energy of the gate, right?
I need to expand my tool belt, spend an afternoon, make a list of gates and everything. And then, if I don't have my own calligraphy set or whatever with inks, I'll just affix it to a pen, use that ink.
Okay, so here's the thing: is
Real
if you're going to
basic.
do it to a pen, I really hate to say this because this is going to end up on YouTube. So the word of caution: mind your allergies to the pens you use. Don't do
Really?
fucking toxic ink. There, I said it. Now we can get into the fun shit. Paper doesn't do crap when it comes to magic. It doesn't. It doesn't have the energy of life behind it. This is why I always
Oh,
recommend using animal skin, parchment, goat skin, drum heads, things like that. However, if you use regular ink from a blue pen, right? Blue being lunar, water, things like that,
Mhm.
and you do an ink transfer, you set it in a cup of tea that's associated with the moon, right? You get the piece of paper wet, the ink is wet, everything is wet. You stick it on yourself, you open the gate while it's still wet, while you're channeling all of these things, take off the paper, temporary tattoo of that force inside you.
and that is smart. I like that. I didn't have that idea before, but now it is singed into my mind, and I'm gonna think about it for the next couple of hours.
It's called flesh crafting.
Flesh crafting. Wow, that sounds weirdly vampiric and kinky. I like that.
It is because you would ideally finish off the flesh crafting with the tattoo. You would actually get it tattooed on you in a specific location or bloodletting through scarification.
Ooh.
So again, this is why I say for the people on YouTube, don't do that. For
Oh yeah,
you,
No,
you're
bro.
underage. Don't do that.
yeah. No, this is all purely hypothetical. We're just
Right.
discussing
But back in high
random
school,
things.
instead of writing on pieces of paper to get my spells done, I would write it up and down my arms and channel energy through my arms and then have the projection out of the technique.
That is wonderful. I never even thought about using infusions like that and simply putting it on myself,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So that that
Wow,
that's a technique for flesh crafting.
like that, of course, in pure hypothetics, that sounds like a interesting concept.
It is. Party trick. You pull a tarot card of an individual in to get their energy of what they produce, right?
We talked about this, I think.
And then you take a Sharpie and on their foot, you can draw a symbol for one
Yeah,
of the 6-line hexagrams. So the hexagrams manipulate the
yeah.
environment based on their being. So when you pull the tarot
So
card
close.
next, it should read for what the hexagram represents.
Right. I remember you talking about this on
Yeah.
Monday night.
Yeah. I
That
was so
that
drunk when
stuck
I
with
did
me for a little bit.
that. So fun. It's like, hey, let's try some shit. Let's
And
get
I can't make a decision. I like to flip a coin. That's my thing. I don't have I that always works out for me, you know. If I need a quick answer, I just flip a coin,
it's
I'll
divination,
maybe
man.
I'll maybe flip it a couple times, but usually if I can get a little link, heads means yes, tells me no, think about it for a second, then do it. It's pretty accurate.
Well,
Very,
I
very accurate.
mean, that's why the laughing god bones, the two lunar things that you can use, paint one side white, paint one side black, of these two carved moon shapes. Oh, camera's doing its thing.
Yeah.
But you can use like the I Ching coins, like
Mm.
just carry a couple of Chinese coins in your pocket, depending on which they go. But always use at least two or three. That way, 2 out of 3 means yes, 1 out of 3, all three means a solid yes. Like, but
Right.
do 3 of them at once. Like, don't just do one once off. Do multiples of them so that way they can do their thing. I don't know how to unbreak the
I
camera.
usually do a best out of 3 when it comes to coin flipping, or
Yeah,
until I found a resounding answer.
yeah,
Because, because when it comes to resounding things, if you look at the mathematics of it,
flip coin, 50% chance, flip coin, get it twice in a row, 25% chance, and it just keeps going deeper and deeper. So when
Right.
you get resounding answers like 7, 8 in a row, which happens, yeah, it's more of a, hey, listen.
Pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like dowsing rods are good. If you can get you a set of dowsing rods, those things are less than $20. Get you a pendulum, less than $20.
I actually made one. Funny story. The first, yeah, I remember this one girl who I used to date who got me into this stuff. Her mother did. Her mother showed me this thing. She was using a pendulum, right? She had me and her sat on the bed, and she was like, "Show me yes," and it started going. Show me no, it started going. Then whenever she said stop, it just completely, even if it was like over here, just dead,
Yeah.
no momentum. And that is so, it's defying physics. It's so, that's
Pendulums are
the
badass,
physical
man.
proof.
Those are
Oh
like your
yeah.
best, like all like if you're going out into the field and you're going to go collecting components and you want to ask a tree if you can take something from it, put your hand on the tree and ask the pendulum if you can take it.
I made my own too. I took a crystal because I go down to lakes and whatnot, and I'll find little precious beauties. My mother got me into it too because she loves to collect things like just pretty little
Oh,
crystals
that's
that look.
awesome.
It looks prettier when it's wet, but we'll find cool stuff. We'll go around, and I remember I took a crystal and I tied it to a string, and I made a little makeshift pendulum, and it worked pretty good. I loved it.
That's great. If you're ever down at the
Yeah.
riverside and you get a chance and you find a stone that's got a hole in it,
I had one. I had one. It was, I don't know how I found it. I remember I had it. I kept it for a while. I woke up one morning, it was broken. Oh well, whatever. Um, but I
yeah,
had it for a while. Kept it for a while. I should have made like a necklace or an amulet out of it. Would have been
it's
cool.
called a hagstone. Those things are really,
Yes.
really important. So like there's a buddy of mine, he goes out and he's got a bunch of them that he sells for like $15. But ideally you should find your own. But yeah, you can make a
Right.
pendulum out of a hagstone with a piece of string and a thing. Like if you've got a ring that you wear on you constantly, and you've got a necklace, you can attach the ring to the necklace and use that.
Yeah.
So
I'm very into the idea of empowering and enchanting. I think enchanting sounds cooler, to be honest, but not many people use that term.
yeah.
Uh, things like rings and little cheap things like that, because it's not only does it cool, but
Oh,
it's
it's freaking
also,
handy.
no, it's useful. It's awesome. I got a fucking magical ring.
Oh, that's exactly right. Like, that's as an example, like this has a bunch of shit attached to it.
So cool. That is
So,
awesome. I go to things like there's this booth called Awakening Eye Crystal. They go around Idaho and stuff at fairs and festivals, but they have all sorts of things like that. They have crystals set up, whatever.
yeah.
But their rings are always so. I love, especially gothic things like that. When I'm outside of work, I usually dress you know, pretty gothic. I like red and black are my favorite colors, and I love
Fantastic.
old English text and whatnot. But God, especially the rings, very
Oh,
cool.
right?
Love them so
It's fantastic.
that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sterling silver
That gets
is a really good catalyst. So it'll actually store energy better than gold.
ooh,
Um, yeah, gold projects energy, silver stores it.
right. It's receptive and projective.
Hmm.
Scott Cunningham in his Metal and Stone book talks a lot about it.
Yeah, the order that I was trained by taught me how to charge and discharge silver. So it has its own entire discipline of magic that you can use for just doing stuff like that, which it then translates into being able to use that across different disciplines. But again, it gets into the higher tier shit of like,
It's funny
oh my God, we can do this sort of thing.
when
So,
you first told. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, it's at this point, fun conversation about how you can build out your traditions and stuff is like, all right, so you've got a ring, you've got the wand, you've got the different things that you build over time, right? To build up an arsenal. And if you don't have a lot of stuff, you know, jewelry is what's always on you. Like that fucking matters.
Yeah.
Like your bracelets, your rings, your necklaces, things like that. That matters. Like it really does. Like you can use those for amulets. You can take off an amulet and you can use it for a conjuring thing to force energy to manifest in the palm of your hand.
Oh yeah.
Like the phylactery that I've got, I call it a phylactery because in the Greek term, it's a once off. It's a one of a kind piece that's made for the magician, right? And for me, I was able to find the necklace was a gift, and I was able to find this on. Broke the camera. Come, silly camera doesn't like me to show things, but that
Wow. That is cool.
Amazon does one of a kind jewelry stuffs.
Mm.
So what you can do is you can find. Camera is broken.
That's fine.
Fucking AI cameras, man.
Yeah, son of a bitch.
All right, there we go. There we go. We can do this. We can do messy, 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 messy. We don't look over there.
Yeah.
So many things to clean, including the bong.
Ooh.
I gotta buy more weed. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
it's
As do
been
I. In
months,
moderation. But
right? But it's something like this you can use in the palm of your hand. You can use this to compel spirits. You can use something like this to make stuff bind before you, and it's not the pentagram.
right. No,
And
I can see that, you know.
the differences between using your shapes, using your magical applications. Like I specifically sought out an 8-point star because all my shit comes with the 8 points using the chaos gates, right? You've got light, dark, life, death, time, mind, spirit. The physical reality is chaos, and the center one is the pandemonium, is the dreamscape. So it unifies all 9 with the 8. So it's the same representation that I use in the designs and stuff that I use for gate magic that I use in an amulet. And so having something like that that translates over, if you find something that represents and resonates with you for your gate spells or your gate magic as a base that can work with anything, like these are all labradorite. So all the little stones around it is labradorite. And if you know what labradorite does, it connects to the astral plane, it connects to the other world. So it allows that energy to transmit easier, right? If you've got for years, I wore a kyanite ring. That helps force astral projection out of your body. If you hold black kyanite in one hand, blue kyanite in the other, it'll basically cause your body to astral project.
Ooh. Black and blue.
Kyanite.
Got it. You know, things like binding, very interesting to me. You know, I played this game a lot and still do. It's from the Middle Earth series, Middle Earth Shadow of whatever. But in the game, the dude has the one ring or whatever, or one of them, whatever. I'm not big on Lord of the Rings, but he basically dominates the minds of his enemies and he forges his own armory from whatever. And
Neat.
oh god, it's so interesting. But and then I started getting into occult stuff and binding and whatever. Such an interesting topic, you know.
Yeah.
I
So
go ahead.
so here's another thing that you can do with a ring. So again, we're going to go back into 14th century necromancy, jewelry and things like that. Once you get your ring, right, you can get an engraver's tool. They're not that expensive. Generally, if you're at the county fair and you get the silver ring, you can go find somebody that's got like the booth of all the tools, the dentist equipment, shit like that. They'll have something that you can use for engraving, carving. Basically a steel into silver works out really good. So you can use the tip of a knife, but you got to make sure you don't cut the shit out of yourself. But you carve a sacred name into it, or you carve a glyph into it or what have you. And then old necromancy says that you can go bury that shit in a cemetery for a week. You can make prayers to those specific entities, and you can ask the spirits of the dead to enter the ring and become part of that object. So then you have a spirit ally inside the ring that you're working with.
God, that's funny. Just like the fucking game too. The rings possessed by a wraith or whatever.
Yeah.
So neat.
They actually do djinn magic. You bond a djinn to the ring. That's legit magic. That's crazy shit.
I've moved around a lot, you know. I've grown to be more nomadic. I love staying in. I wouldn't call myself nomadic, but I'm always ready to move. You know, I'm always I don't want to, but I'm very used to and able to.
That's good.
So it helps to keep my repertoire small, where I don't have a lot of things, a lot of setup. You know, my most prized possessions are probably my electronics because I've spent the most time in, you know, as a kid with them.
Right.
But like when it comes to things like gemstones or tools and whatnot, you know, I've learned to keep it small, like pens and paper or whatever. You can get those anywhere.
Right.
Um, but as I settle more, it's neater. It's better to more build a founding. And I found that funny because when you told me that you were into retail, I thought you like worked at a CVS or something. You know what I mean? Not owning what you did, and that it's pretty neat. You
Yeah.
know?
I worked at a Pier 1 and got into the industry. I was telling the story earlier to the guys. The lady that came in one day and she was looking for a basket for a pen holder display for her shop. And I'm like, oh, what kind of shop do you have? She's like, oh, I got a retail store. It's for a fake poop pen holder display. It's like, oh, that's cool. And then a couple months later, they came back in and I held a rug back in the back for them. And they liked the ability that I had for, talking to people. And they're like, if you ever want a better job, come see me. So I was working for them for 2.5 years out in Georgia. So selling sex toys and stuff, learned all the industry there. Wound up working my way up as an extreme fetish buyer, went to the conventions and stuff for Vegas.
Ooh.
So when I was working out there at the sex shops there, it's like all the crazy shit, like the sex museum right behind the fashion show mall in Vegas was celebrating its anniversary one year, and everybody that works there was a pagan. Everybody. And they were doing sex magic stuff. They were doing electrostim stuff. They've got artifacts from the fucking 6th century in there. Like,
Damn.
oh
Look
yeah.
at you, the CEO of sex.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic because all of that shit's magic. It's all about creation and birth.
Oh,
And wow.
See, as much as all of that, I'm more of a hustler Hollywood guy myself.
But
Hate me if you will. Kill me with an onion.
I try not to do that to people. Although I do have plenty of onions. So
Yeah, I have a lot of onions too. I like to use them in my food.
onions are good for you. Onions
Oh,
are
yeah.
good for you. Try to avoid using onions for black magic. They're better
Yeah, I find
used
that interesting.
deep fried.
I was reading. I found onions on the list of correspondences for a few things. I was looking through some of Cunningham's books, but Mars, I believe, and maybe it was Saturn. It would make sense because of death and whatever.
Yes. You can dry out the skin of an onion, you cut it down, and you can use it as paper.
Ooh. Oh,
So
that is interesting. It's
you can draw your sigils on an onion skin.
that is the embodiment of a death note right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty much.
Because of Mars and whatever.
Transformation. Ooh. Focus on transformation, not so much as death in the change states, right?
Oh, of course.
But that way you don't get into addiction of black magic and energies. It's like I knew this one cat, he would he wanted a destructive spell, so I gave him one, and then he started worshiping the gods of death, and for about 18 months all he would do is conjure up dead, dark demon death, blah blah blah, and basically he stopped being the fun cat that I knew that was that I was willing to talk to. So it's like,
I see, I'm definitely like not into, I am into knowing and understanding it because that's interesting, it's taboo, but like I've never practiced anything to harm someone, not even out of personal ethic or code or moral or whatever, mostly because it takes a lot to piss me off. I usually get over things pretty quick.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely not a big, you look at me weird, I'm going to summon the demons of hell to play with your dick. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's fun to think about, but no, that's not the sort of thing I wish to embody just because that seems like a waste of effort. I'd
It
rather
really
just
is.
give the person any attention rather than succumb to wanting to kill everyone I look at with an onion.
Exactly. And that is an unfortunate part of when you do so much destructive magic that it becomes the warrior path. It becomes, you are ready to draw blood at the drop of a hat, and it does afflict part of your personality that you have to get under control. You absolutely do. If you start using that kind of energy, you have to keep it under control. And it's about
good willpower like that, you know what I mean? Like,
What?
unless you can balance, you know what I mean? But most people, like the warrior path, they surround themselves with that, and they can't balance it out or take it in moderation. They keep fulfilling that, and then it's what consumes them, but not in a destructive way. Just they embody it because they surround themselves with it. It's like drinking all the time, you become an alcoholic, you know?
Right. And so I mean, and that's the damaging side of the left hand path, is because for a good hot minute I was doing that. Like I spent many
Yeah.
years doing that. These idiot little fucking psychic vampire shits would come up and try to fuck with me or my friends with one of their little pissant little fucking shadow tendrils that they try to send through the computer to like attach to your body, and you could feel the drain off of them and shit like that. It's like, all right, I'm gonna smack this motherfucker across the continent. Like,
I
enjoy
remember
your
I read
migraine,
on
motherfucker.
I read on one of the things, one of the posts on, I believe it was the Brotherhood of Mill Witches, but someone talked about they're more with swatting flies with nukes, and it's exactly the same way. If you're gonna, especially if it was with me, for example, if you're going to, do something like that, like I take that to a big grave of severity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like
Swatting
if
flies
it's
with
if it's
nukes
an
is very important.
uninitiated, like you're just gonna send out some little like feeler bug to try to like peep or attach or whatever. It's like that's what I put it in the Grimoire of Arts for, is like that shit is basic elementary like vampirism, psychicism. Like it's the active aspects of being able to be psychic, right? Is
I
you
think
can
it's
send
very
out your
interesting.
psychic feelers and you can do stuff, but those feelers, they're like little tentacles that if you don't know what you're doing, they still stay attached. And so you got to burn them off.
Mm.
Or somebody else
Oh,
can burn them
okay.
off and enjoy your headache. Or it becomes more severe. Like, yeah, have a very interesting life.
Yeah.
So it becomes one of those things where, yes, even though you do and deal in darker stuff, that you got to keep a handle on it. Like that's one of the things that training comes into, like getting back to center, going back to an emotional calm, like having stuff that's so basic that you don't have to do a spell to do it. It's just
Mhm.
becomes so intrinsically a part of you that you just brush it off, or can with certain gestures can conjure that energy up and out, and that energy ripples up around your auric field and it gets your will done in order to
And
purify yourself.
yeah, it's very interesting to me, the creation, just creation in general, whether it be little critters, whatever, those feelers that you were talking about, creating things to do whatever like that. It's just a very basic primal sense of ooh.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, I can do this, and then I can do this, and then I can do this, and then I can
Send
fleshcraft
them
it.
all.
Like,
I am
it's
going
like,
to
why
have to
not?
hop
Why
out of
not?
here soon, but God, I enjoy this. I want to probably going to start delving into creation stuff more, like celestials creation. But of course, with the rite of transformation, it will make it a lot easier and
Oh, it really
cooler.
does. It really does, because then you could take a stick and you could make sylphs. Then you could take a
Oh, oh
rock and make
yeah.
gnomes.
Oh yeah, and I feel like it's possible regardless, but allowing yourself to go through the rite of transformation, it makes it a lot easier, makes it a lot more powerful.
Yeah, because the
And
same it opens you up to the same energy that moves outside yourself.
I want to
So
see a sylph.
huh?
I want to see a sylph, or a salamander. That
They
sounds
can they
cool.
can be interesting. It's like the way Rex described it when he woke up his wand is that it was this little leaf thing. And then we worked through it in the Zoom or it was a private Zoom with him. And then we went live and recorded parts of it afterwards. But he went through the different stages. He went through, okay, so he named the thing, it gave him its name.
Mm,
And then so he conjured the spirit, and then he opened up the seal for that spirit so that it could pass through also. So then it
mm.
grew, and then it grew into a full like sized embodied, like instead of just like this leaf with eyes, it was a full on being.
It was like, wow, that's very intense. And
It broke
well,
him,
it's
I believe. Like it
really
was very intense. He was very quite put aback by the intensity of the work.
right. And it's an individual separated thing. It's not like you can just say, all right, well, fuck off.
Yeah,
Like it's
no,
its own.
you created it. It's it's daddy.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
know,
that's a thing that you're
wear a
going to be
condom.
with forever until you kill it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's pretty sad. Hey, I birthed you. Well, now I don't want to deal with that. So,
Yeah, pretty much.
well, I mean, consequences of those actions. Here, my
Right.
puppy wants to get on the bed.
Your puppy is
My,
so cute. Aw.
thank you. I'm glad that you think it's cute. I probably have to head out here soon. I
Oh, you're
have.
good. We've done
Well,
an hour with this conversation. So if there's anything
oh
else,
yeah.
we can pick it up tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that we're going to do earlier in the day is Alex is going to go through one of the binding spells that he doesn't understand. So we're going to actually break down one of the spells he channeled from the other world and
Ooh.
make it viable. So
Okay. I will keep an eye out for the video. Send me the link if you have a chance.
I will. So if you've got anything that you channel from the other world or your dreams or what have you, and you've got questions on making something viable or making it more viable, but I think your homework should be that you should try to do the sigil of the lunar gate tonight and do a transfer or draw it on your skin and open the gate, and through that symbol, flood your body with that energy.
You got it. Well, I'm going to go on a walk in about fucking 20 minutes. With the uncle who I was discussing earlier with the relative with the whole Santa thing.
Fantastic.
We're gonna be walking around, midnight walk, might stop by a store.
Wonderful, man. Yeah. Look for one of the herbs of the moon. Jasmine would
I
probably
can
be your
find,
best bet.
there are plenty of correspondences I'm sure I can find them. I know they're in your books and many others alike.
Yeah, just you could do like a quick Google search of like what tea associates with this planet. Like,
Oh yeah, no, it's very widespread. I
it
like
is.
that, the idea of getting a task like that, a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
Because it definitely gives me a more standard idea of what to do. Like I can figure out here, maybe I should try doing this, or should I do this? But getting an actual an exemplary task
Yeah.
words
You're good.
makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with for tomorrow. I look forward to seeing what transpires. So until then, my friend, stay safe, have fun
You
out
too.
there, and don't be evil, huh?
Definitely not.
Have a great night.